Have you been looking for a simple way to assess if things are out of alignment in your life? In this episode, Chris and I share our simple golden 7 or above rule that's going to help you figure out what feels good in your life, how to stay alignment with your integrity, and how to be able to use logic and feeling all at the same time so that you make sure you're not doing actions out of obligation, guilt, or resentment. We're also just getting back from Hair Love Retreat, and we're sharing all of our wisdom and nuggets that we took away from this escape to learn experience. It's so incredible what happens when you're around a group of like-minded, powerful beings, and we're going to share that wisdom with you in today's episode. Hey, we're Britt and Chris Carmichael, and you're listening to the Elevated Life Podcast. Throughout the 13 years we've been together, we've never ceased in our endless quest to better ourselves.
We've studied top experts, philosophers, and gurus. After years of personal self-experimentation, we found the tools for shifting your beliefs, moving through fears, and developing a positive mindset.
If you're ready for a breakthrough, then you're in the right place, because we're here to empower you to take control of your life with simple mindset shifts that create radical transformation.
We'll be diving into topics like personal growth, health, philosophy, spirituality, relationships, success, and mindfulness.
So create some space for yourself and get comfy. It's time to become the badass you were born to be. So Chris and I recently got back from Hair Love Retreat. It was a 5-day magical experience. It was basically like my goddess gatherings and the healing that happens there meets a hair show. And it was in the middle of Zion. It was the most beautiful, magical experience, and I know my soul needed it so bad. So I wanted to just share some of the insights and the takeaways and ultimately lead you back to our philosophy that started the Elevated Life, to remind you that you really do have a choice and power to choose your life.
And listen, we started hosting retreats last year, and if you do not regularly go to retreats, or if you've never been to one before, this is something that you absolutely need to put into your calendar. It doesn't have to be ours. It doesn't have to be Hair Love if you don't do hair, but whatever topic it is that you're interested in, go to a retreat about it. If that's a yoga retreat, if that's a food retreat, it doesn't matter. Just go out and be around people who are interested in what you're interested in. It will fill your cup so much, because oftentimes we're in kind of our own little world, and a lot of times we don't have the people around us that are enthusiastic, and they're like, oh my gosh, well, have you tried it this way? Or, hey, have you done this thing? And it will open your mind. I mean, the amount that you progress from going to a retreat is so much more than if you were just to live your normal everyday life, because there's so much more inspiration that happens at them, and there's so much more just feel good. And so you leave coming away being like, oh my gosh, man, I'm so just re-energized. I feel so good now. Now I can go do cool things again.
Oh man, special shout out to Elizabeth Faye and her team for creating such an amazing experience. We'll be having her on the podcast next month, so we're super excited to tap into her wisdom.
And the other thing real quick is that when you do go to retreats, make sure that even if you're an introvert, make sure that you spend plenty of time networking, because despite the fact that so many good things happen at the event, where the real magic happens is afterward, because you want to reconnect back with those people that you met there so that you can continue forward with these lifelong relationships. The mystery and all the golden nuggets are actually in the relationships. They're not the event. The event is just a way to get us all together so that we can meet each other.
Oh, it's so true. I'm so grateful for all the connections that we made. And, you know, it's really cool. We've got to meet people that have been following us online or that have been our elevators inside the club. We got to meet them in person. And it was just so magical to finally put a face and a body to, you know, a DM that we've had for many years. So it's just amazing what retreats can do. I really feel like when you get away, what Elizabeth calls it is escape to learn. When you get outside your comfort zone, you can't help but change. You can't help but notice things about yourself, the judgments, the self-criticism, the comparison, all of that comes up when you're outside your comfort zone, and it really shows you where you're at in your spiritual growth and evolution.
Yeah, the other thing that I like is that a lot of times there are people who set up their lives so that they're the big fish in the small pond. So in their small world, they are the big dog. They're the celebrity. They're the person. And when you go out with a big group from all over the world, what ends up happening is there's always going to be somebody bigger than you. There's always going to be somebody who knows more. There's always going to be somebody that's prettier. There's always somebody who's a better dancer, a better communicator, a better everything. But what that gives you the opportunity to do is to learn and extract from them what it is that they're doing in their life that works. And so a lot of times what you want to be doing besides networking is being extremely, extremely observant. The more that you can watch people and the more that you can dissect what it is that they're doing that's really propelling them forward, or that's bringing them a lot of happiness or a lot of good in their lives, or that's making other people respond to them, you can start to learn to take some of that away and integrate it into your own life so that you're sort of borrowing their skills. But if you just lived regularly, you wouldn't be able to see that. You wouldn't be able to have those kind of opportunities because we're just kind of stuck in the normalcy. And so being able to watch them and go, oh my gosh, that's how they do that. That's how they set up conversations. That's what they're thinking of. That's what they're doing when they go to eat. You know, some of those people are going to be super fit. And so you can go, oh, what are they eating? How are they thinking about food? What are they doing with their drinking? How much are they working? Like, there's so many questions that you can, just by watching, you can learn so much.
You know, speaking of conversations and connecting with people, I definitely made that my mission. How many people can I talk to? How many people can I connect? And also, I think 1 million people asked, can I get a card reading? So it just automatically connected us and opened our hearts to a beautiful, inspired conversation. But the thing that I kept taking away from it, I was so lucky to have been a keynote speaker at this retreat. And I am just beyond blessed and grateful and hashtag manifested, y'all. Like, dreams come true. My hair mentor, Sam Villa, braided my hair at the party on the last night, and I even pulled an oracle card for him, and he's so innovative. His biggest takeaway, you know, you want to learn from mentors that are better than you. The only thing he said, the most wise thing he said was, I just practice more than you. And that's it. We try to make it so hard, like there's some secret answer, some like decoder ring, but really it is having a passion and then putting practice behind it. Do you want to say something?
Yeah, and it's reminding me that a lot of times when we're looking for new things, when we're saying, well, what's that next step, or what's going to really revolutionize my life, what we're really looking for is how much more can we add to our lives. And that's not what works. A lot of times when you do that, you eventually just get overwhelmed. And so when you're looking at what the next step is, or how can you make a big change, it's always about simplifying. It's about being extremely simple, because when we add too many steps, we make it too tough for ourselves. And then what ends up happening is we end up frustrated, and then we think, oh no, we can't do that. And really what we have to do is strip back things and like, how can we make this really simple? How can we make it so that our mind understands it? And how can we make it in such a way that it motivates us to take some sort of action? And just the simple idea of practicing. You know, practice a lot of times takes away the failure aspect. When you think of something as a practice, failure is already built in. You're just trying things out. And so when you look at life in a more non-serious aspect like that, it's so much easier to move forward, because otherwise you end up going, well, that didn't work, and well, it's my fault, and well, I just wasn't as good. But that's not really true. A lot of times you're just trying stuff out and trying to figure out what is that thing that really moves the needle forward.
And speaking of moving the needle forward, I really, you know, it's so funny because I really kept asking the universe, like, what do you want me to teach? What am I supposed to share? I've been given this opportunity. How can I make the most of it? And I literally put out a message to the universe, like, what would you like me to share? And then boom, one of my friends sat down next to me, Laura, and she says, you want to know the most valuable thing I've ever learned from you? And I was just like, well, that's kind of a great way to start a conversation. Hell yes, I'm listening. I feel like this is the universe answering the question I just asked. And she said, 7 or above. And you guys know, if you've been following us for any length of time, we have said hashtag 7 or above club. And it is our philosophy that you get to choose. You get to consciously choose your life, and you get to rate everything on a scale of 1 to 10. And this gives the logic an opportunity to meet where your emotions are, to see if you really authentically align or if you're doing something out of guilt and obligation. 1 being awful, 10 being amazing. If it's not a 7 or above, it's a hell no. You don't have to do it. Delete it, delegate it, or find a way to reframe your mindset to enjoy whatever it is you got to do. And it was so interesting because she said that and I laughed and I said, oh, haha, maybe that's what I should teach in my keynote. And it was just kind of like let's just brush it off. Like, that's pretty funny. Not even 10 minutes later, our other friend, Sophia, walks up. She's an elevator and she goes, look, and she shows us the back of her phone. And she has one of our high class hippie merch stickers on it that says 7 or above club. And she's like, you guys are always with me. I'm always making sure I'm doing things that are in alignment with what feels good for me. And I just was like, okay, okay. That's it. The universe is always mirroring back to you the answers that you're looking for to the questions that you've asked. And it was very clear to me that that was what I was meant to teach. So of course I opened up and shared about Mom's stroke story and how I came to this self-discovery journey and how I've overcome self-love and not taking time and time for self-care. But ultimately my takeaway point at the retreat, and so many of the girls came up and said, wow, that was top dog, like wisdom right there. I needed that. That was one of my biggest takeaways, was 7 or above. And that applies to the clients that you're working with, to the actions that you're doing, to the people that you're spending time with, to the food that you're putting in your mouth, to the Easters that you want to say no to, how we got started with it. So 7 or above, I really just wanted to take an episode to talk about how you can apply that. And maybe you need to do an inventory check and kind of assess your life and see, are there areas where you aren't living a 7 or above? And kind of wanted to give you guys some insight on some of the takeaways that we experienced for our personal selves through going to this retreat and speaking with so many different like go-getter light worker beings. Like we've decided that hairdressers are healers, and when they wake up to that power, it's just like we're going to change the world, but it has to start with our own personal world.
Yeah, and doing that inventory, and especially if you have a partner, whether it's a business partner, whether it's a romantic relationship, this is something that you want to get them in on too. And you need to really go over it about every single category. This is not just something that you look at just one piece of your life. It should be down to like what clothes you wear. It should be like, are these the people that I want to wake up every day and serve? Is this the kind of work that I actually want to be doing? Is this the kind of money that I want to be making?
Am I charging my worth?
Yeah, so you get to a lot of that, and the 7 or above just simplifies it all. Because it gives you really quick streamline, oh, this is a Mayday, like we need to be working on this part. And it doesn't always mean that you can immediately quit. Sometimes you're doing things that aren't that exciting and you need to be doing them for a little while. But what we typically do is we try to delegate all of those parts out. If there's a part of the business or a part of something that we don't like doing, it's hireable these days. I mean, there's so many services now where you can get someone else to do so many of the things that you don't want to do. So don't always feel like it's on your shoulders, because even though you may not want to show up in a certain way, maybe someone else can do that part, and you can just end up doing the things that you really shine at, or things that bring you a lot of joy. And so you're not kind of stuck in being like, oh my gosh, I have to do this part again, or oh, I have to see that person again. It's always fine to say no. It's always fine to tell people like, hey, I've got boundaries. And what ends up becoming interesting is that once you do that enough times, people start to give you this extreme amount of respect, because they know that you're a no BS person. You're going to just come out and tell them like, you know what, I'm sorry, that's not a 7 or above for me. I'm not going to be doing it. Like in our life, when my mom or somebody or my sister calls up like, hey, you want to go do this? And there's that pause. They're like, okay, so it's not a 7 or above. I don't even have to answer anymore. Like they're used to hearing it. And it's not me trying to come off as I'm a jerk or something. Like I'm interested in what they're doing, but sometimes either I don't have the time or I just can't do it. And so it's always okay to be able to pause and say, you know what? I don't think so on that. I want to come back really quick though, because what's interesting about what Britt mentioned is that before Britt goes and does any kind of keynotes on stage, any kind of anything like that, videos, whatever, we always talk through for a moment before then what she's going to talk about. We sort of sketch out a little bit rough, because Britt likes to really shoot from the hip, and a lot comes through her, and it's really cool to see. So we had everything planned. We knew exactly what she was going to talk about. And guess what? She abandoned 100% of it. There's not one thing that we talked about and we planned through that she was. And what I want to say is that this is such an important thing. And if you get this, you will nail a lot more parts of your life. And that is always have a plan. Always have a plan. And the reason why is because you don't want to get up there and be completely unprepared and be like, oh, it's just going to come to me. It's you have a plan first, and then be totally fine with abandoning the plan. To be totally fine with it. Like that's not weird. That's not abnormal. Don't just get up there and be like, oh, well, I made the plan, so I have to do it now. When multiple people come up and say that that's what they want, like you have to be listening at all times. People always are looking for answers, but they aren't listening for them for whatever reason. They keep telling them that, well, if I could just find the answer, well, if I could just find, people are coming up and they're telling them to you like right in your face, if you just open your eyes for a moment and listen to them. And so when you see those answers or when you hear them, a lot of times what you need to do is pivot. You need to make small pivots in what you're doing and be fine with that. Be like, okay with scrapping it all. Like what she got there and delivered, she nailed it. I mean, it's exactly what everybody wanted to hear because that's what they told her they wanted to hear. And so don't always assume that you've got all the answers. A lot of times they are right there in reality, staring you in the face, human beings telling you. And a lot of times it comes from people that you wouldn't expect. I mean, the amount of times that our life has been nudged in I'll call it a more right direction than we were going was all random conversations. Random. And it may be like the waiter at a restaurant we've never been to before, but they may tell us that one little thing and we go, oh, okay, we're gonna slightly move over here. And listening like that takes so much pressure off of you because otherwise you have to come up with everything. Like it's all on your shoulders. And this way, what ends up happening is you're allowing this like co-creation thing to happen, and you're allowing more people to be a part of it, even if they don't know it.
You know what else got reflected back to us a lot while we were at Hair Love? Besides, I probably need to just solely coach hairdressers. That was pretty incredible. But the thing that got reflected back to Chris and I the most was couples retreat. We need a couples retreat. We want to learn what you guys are doing. How are you doing this together? How come you guys are so happy? Like, what's your secret? And that was also reflected back to us through doing all the goddess retreats. So like, I need to bring my partner. Oh my gosh. Like, I don't want to do this alone. I want them to come on this journey with me. And Chris and I at the beginning of the year were like, yep, we're going to do a couples retreat this year. We're so excited. And then my dad died. And my creativity, my excitement, just like everything kind of went out the window, and I just needed to heal. I needed to throw everything off my plate and just focus on me and heal. And that's ultimately what I teach. And so who am I to teach people self-care and self-love if I'm not setting that own example in my life? And so kind of just abandoned ship on all of my projects this year, which felt really weird, especially with all the momentum building, all the growth. We had just hired more people on the team. And everything was going, and I just was like, you know what? We need to just pump the brakes and do what feels good for me. It wasn't a 7 or above anymore. And I kept asking Chris every month, like, should we do this couples retreat? Are you excited about it? Like, are we trying to do it this year, or do we push it off till next year? And we kept kind of going back and forth, and we both were sitting at 70%. We're like, it is a 7 or above because we know we want to do it. We're very excited, but just timing and what feels good. And do we really have the space for that? And I feel like after going to the retreat, not only healing and releasing some of the that I was carrying around this year, but really hearing other people so excited about it, it's like, how could we not follow through on that? And that is something that we're going to spend time right like now, this week, actually tomorrow. So I don't know when you'll hear this later this week, but now's the time. We're pumped, we're excited, and sometimes you just need that outside push, whether it's a little getaway with your partner, if it's a getaway to an event that is in alignment with your passions like hair or yoga or XYZ. Sometimes you just need that little zhuzh in your life to kind of get you re-inspired and back on track. It's ultimately what I do when everyone books a tarot reading or coaching reading, is like, just, how can I pump you back up and get you re-inspired? And sometimes you just have to honor when there's a lull, and maybe there's something to learn from that lull.
Yeah, and also that the lulls are okay. It's not, it's not something that we have to run away from. It's not something that we have to hide. When Britt asked me, am I ready to do the retreat? I already knew that she wasn't ready, because she wouldn't ask me otherwise. I mean, when Britt's excited about something, she's 100%, she's never going to be like, hey, what do you think about this? We're already doing it. I mean, she's already like, sprinting down the road. Like, I'm ready, with streamers in her hand.
Catch up.
Yeah, it's always like that. So I knew that there need to be more time. There need to be more self-reflection. And same again, you got to be able to pivot. When it's not right, it's not right. And that is totally okay. Sometimes it takes a little longer. Sometimes it's not on we always want to decide the timeline, but it's not always going to be right. It's not always going to be exactly the way we want it to be. And being able to move with life that way makes it so much more freeing. Like, I'm tired of always trying to hustle or always trying to grind everything out. I mean, I don't mind doing that, but you don't need to. It's not something that you always need to do. I think the hustle mentality and the just keep going, just force yourself to do things, I think that's a really outdated way of looking at it.
It's a disease.
And there's so much more when you relax into it, and when you feel that energy back up, when you know you're ready, like, you're ready. That doesn't mean you always sit on the sideline, doesn't mean you always wait for every single thing to happen, but because I say once you're like 65% there, you're probably ready, maybe a little bit afraid. But if you're down in the dumps, like if you're really feeling it, if you're going through things, like with a death or anything like it, like you gotta take time. You have to take a moment for yourself and say, oh, right now I'm what's important, especially if you're a person of service, especially if you're a person who shows up and delivers to people, and it's a big energetic commitment. It's a time commitment, and you have to honor yourself. You have to be able to say, you know what, I'm important too. And sometimes the important thing to do is to pause everything and to say, you know what, where we're going right now is going to take a little bit longer to get to because I need to rest for a while. That was something we learned hiking too. When we were in Zion, we hiked Angel's Landing, which apparently I did not know at the time.
Nobody told us this.
No. So they're just like, hey, you guys want to go hiking? Like, of course, yes, this is going to be awesome. And what we didn't know about Angel's Landing is that it's one of the most dangerous hikes in the entire world because there's a part that you get to where you walk and you have to hold on to chains. And if you slip on the change, which people do, like this is something that happens. It's not like, well, it could happen. This happens. You fall off straight off a cliff. There's nothing to catch you. There's no trees. It's just straight.
Like really far, like over 1,000 feet down.
And so what I noticed was really good is that every once in a while you got to take a pause. You know, you're walking, and you're struggling, and you know you're breathing because it's basically straight up. I mean, it's a good 50 or so minutes vertical. I mean, it's on a path, but you're walking very much up, and there's times where you just gotta take a rest for a moment and be okay with that. And everybody else is pausing too, and if you do it that way, you can make it up so much easier. You know, if you continuously force yourself, you can be one of those people that we saw that were sitting out, look like they just got hit by a Mack truck, and you're wondering like, hey, you need some help down there, bud? Like, what's going on? Did you push a little too hard? And be fine. And it's so beautiful to be able to get out and do challenging things, to be able to challenge your body, to be able to challenge your mind, but at the same time to respect where your limits are and to not really push past those. Maybe test them a little bit, but not push past. To have that awareness, and I think that awareness takes a lot of maturity. I did not have that awareness for a very long time, and I've gotten to a point in my life where I know so much more about what I can do and what's not possible for me. Mm-hmm. And I like to get out there a little bit, a little extra, but at the same time to know it and to say, okay, well, I'm fine with that for today. That's good enough for today. And being able to say that makes it so much easier to wake up tomorrow and still feel motivated. Because if you defeat yourself, no matter what happens tomorrow, you'll still feel defeated.
Boom. Yeah, I remember telling the girls at the bottom of the hike, like, last time I was in Sedona, I got all this like download information about how climbing a mountain is just like life. You just have to take one step in front of the other. And when you're hiking up a mountain, you're watching your feet. You're not looking around. You're not looking behind you. You're not looking at your destination. All you can do is focus on one step in front of the other. Otherwise, you can fall off, which I did in Colorado.
Fell straight off the mountain.
Oh my gosh, thank God it wasn't Angel's Landing. There was a tree to catch me. But all you can do is take one foot in front of the other. And when you're tired, just like this conversation, rest, pause, and look up. Look how far you've come. Celebrate yourself. Enjoy the view. See what you see now that is different that you couldn't see from the bottom. And then when you've regained that energy, start again. And the same progress, like take action when you have motivation, when you have energy, when you're inspired, when you are tired and depleted and you've given too much and your balance is out of whack. Take a pause, take a breath. And I'm telling the girls that, and they're like, yeah, that's where we're going. And they pointed to the top of Angel's Landing. I was like, what in the fuck is that? Like, that's where we're going? Nobody told me that. So it's really interesting how, like even when things look scary, even when your destination, you have a big dream and anxiety kicks in or fear kicks in or people who don't believe in you that maybe are not a 7 or above in your life. And this conversation will remind you that you need to surround yourself with people who lift you up. When you have that environment, it makes it so much easier to climb to the top of the mountain. We didn't do that alone. We did that as a community, as a group. We cheered each other on. And when we were hiking back down the mountain, the people that were getting so close, and I know how tired they were trying to go up those switchbacks. I could see it in their face, and I was there. I've been there. And that's what coaches do is like, I've walked your shoes. I know what that feels like. Let me give you some motivation. And so we would be like, you're almost there. Great job. Great job. We ended up making friends with the chick that was walking behind us. She's like, stop fucking telling people that. It sucks. It's so hard. But you need that sometimes. You need that person to say, you're doing a great job. You've come a long way. Even if you're not exactly where you think you should be or where you want to be, you're always in the right place at the right time.
I wonder how many of us are actually in the place where we think we want to be. I bet it's so few. Like it's weird how we always set these limits. We always have these, we set these bars, and we're always trying to reach for this specific goal. And what's weird is that the second that we even get near the goal, not talking past it, but even get near it, like if we're a few inches away, we always move the goal. We always move it. And we're never like, oh man, yeah, it's pretty good. It's a lot of times it's more of like, well, how come I'm not doing better? Well, so-and-so did this in this amount of time. And it's, every once in a while, almost every actually time that we go hiking, there's always, and it's normally when we're super tired. It's normally when we're worn out. Because when we were there, it's over 100 degrees every day. And so you're sweating, and it's like an oven there. There's no humidity, but you're like sitting, like you've got the oven open and your face is right there in front. And so every time we get to that spot, there's always someone that runs by us sprinting. They sprint by us. And you're thinking, man, I'm so tired. How does anyone do this? And then here comes some random person flying by you. And you just think, wow, I didn't even know people could be that in shape. I didn't know people could do this. And for me, it invigorates me with energy again. It makes me think, oh my gosh, that's possible. And I think going out to retreats, and I think really living by the 7 or above philosophy, what it should do is it should make you think, oh my gosh, that's possible. Because as you start drawing the boundaries around your life and excluding a bunch of the things that you no longer need, what ends up happening is it gets replaced by opportunity. And it gets replaced by really cool people in your life who really, really just magnify your strengths, who build you up, and who show you that all of the stuff that you've been dreaming about is not only possible, but it's so much easier than you thought it would be. It doesn't always have to be so hard. Sometimes when our dreams seem very, very distant from us, that's something that we're creating in our mind, or that's a story someone has told us and we've accepted. And so when you start applying this rule in your life, and it needs to be something that you update all the time, because what used to be above a 7 for me now is below. And things have changed. I've learned new things. I've had new opportunities. I've had new experiences. And so some of the things are different.
Another thing about the 7 or above rule is it could be the exact same action scenario with the same people, and they ask you on Tuesday and it's a no, but then they ask you on Friday and it's like an 8 or a 9, and you're like, absolutely. So all of it is circumstantial, and it's all based on how are you feeling in that moment, in the present moment. It's like getting you back into alignment with what feels good for you, and making sure that you're not people pleasing. That was another thing that came up a lot at the retreat, and just in general with our coaching, is that people are wanting to be of service and they do it at their own expense.
Yeah, and it ends up making them resentful. And that's the worst place that you can be, is when you're doing something that you love and then at the same time you resent it, because you stop giving your gifts. You end up becoming more reclusive. You just feel almost grossed out by other people and their needs. And instead of feeling empathetic and like, oh my gosh, I can help them so much. So look deep into your life and ask yourself, are you living 7 or above? Are you really in a space where you've decided and committed to that rule? And if you haven't, try it out for a while. Do all this as a practice. Do all this just as an experiment. And try it out and say, for the next month, I'm going to just live by 7 or above in every way possible that I can. And for the things that aren't above a 7, I'm going to figure out a plan so that I can move them and feel different about them. Either I'm just going to accept the fact that I have to do it, I'm going to delegate it, or I'm going to eliminate it completely. And notice how fast and quick your life can change. It is absolutely one of the most powerful tools. It is so simple, but it's so spot on.
So come join us in the 7 or above club, aka the Elevated Life, and we'll give you that motivation and inspiration every single month in our live coaching, our yoga and meditation practices. And what I love most about the Elevated Life is the community. It's the people. It's the people that are cheering you on and supporting you and saying, hey, you're not alone. We also have big dreams. We're also our own worst enemy. And let's just collectively stop doing that together. So if you need more inspiration and tips on how to live a 7 or above life, then come join us in the club, and we will catch you guys next week.
Peace.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Elevated Life podcast. Want more? Join us at theelevatedlifeclub.com for mindset upgrades, lifestyle hacks, and spiritual tools to elevate your soul.
Each month features a new masterclass, meditation, yoga practice, and more to help you transform your life one step at a time.
Come join the 7 or Above Club.